Good morning, everyone. All probably 8 of us anyway. Welcome to the stage, Gateshead. My name's Stephen Savage, and I'm Director of Regulatory Service and Public Protection at Newcastle City Council. And for me sins, I've been there since 1981 and always dealt with licensing since that time. And reminiscing with one of your speakers shortly, Sarah Smith, is that going back to those early days, we remember when licences in the city were traded for £250,000 when there was a limitation on them. And since the 2005 Act, we have come a long way. But I was going to talk a little bit today about the city's new licensing policy, which will cover now 5 years from 2013 to 2018. And it's written on the basis that we would be supportive of the trade whilst bearing in mind the issues that the city has. This policy that we're about to develop will go to our Cabinet on the 24th of April and to full Council on the 1st of May. I think you've probably heard this yesterday because I did see a report in the Journal, and I think it was probably something I did previously. There is 19 million visits for people to Newcastle and Gateshead in respect of the nighttime economy and daytime economy from the licensing trade. £346 million of spend. There's 7,000 jobs. But either willingly or not, I think, depending where you are in the trade, 60% of alcohol sales are driven by the off-trade now. But Newcastle does have a problem. And politically, it's a major issue for the politicians and for the people of the city. And one thing that the two issues clash, both the sale of alcohol, how much is drunk and where it's drunk. But the city is 314th out of 326 for male alcohol mortality within the country, and that's a major problem. That's where we're ranked, and it's not a great ranking, and it's something we'd like to do something about. And also for death by chronic liver disease, we are 312th within the country out of 326. So it isn't a great picture across Newcastle, and there is big political concerns about that. So whilst the politicians want to look at that, they also want to improve the nighttime economy. In respect of the new licensing policy, we've designed it to maintain a quality of offer and also to address saturation of off-licences in certain areas of the cities, which I'll deal with in a minute. It's also to address the saturation of on-premises within the city centre. There are certain areas where we are of the view there are enough, and in some places maybe it's too many. We need to protect residents. Officers who deal with the licensing policy are under considerable pressure in order to reduce hours rather than extending them. And one of the things we've dealt with over the years is the clash between residents and licensees in the city centre, and that is particularly ongoing in certain areas. And residents with IT, with internet, they are more connected with everything and they're more prepared to challenge, and we've got to be up to that in order to protect their lives, because the more people live in the city centre, the better it is for us. And also, as part of the nighttime levy, which you'll hear a little about shortly, is we also want to introduce a best practice scheme similar to the food hygiene scheme you've probably seen previously in other premises, where you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star premises, which we'd like to use as a marketing tool for the premises within the city, and would like that to be the first in the country. In terms of a best practice scheme, we don't want to be bureaucratic, and would like to use the evidence that us and the police have already got, and based on things like crime and disorder, do you have noise breakout, is a fire risk assessment up to date, something which personally concerns me. And some of the premises in the city, are they up to date? Because a lot of premises never see a fire officer from one year to the next, because there just aren't any anymore. But are they up to date? We don't want any issues within the city. And also, the fifth one, after speaking to the trade, would be customer service. How good is it? Who's actually measuring it? And can we measure it with the trade as part of a best practice scheme? One thing within the new policy which has caused considerable angst, I think, amongst the licensing trade is a new framework of hours. Within the city itself, we have premises which throughout the night are open until, I think the latest one is 6 o'clock in the morning. And at the moment, we feel the spread of hours within the trade is adequate to cope. There is no intention in any of the policies to pull back the hours. Some people think that it was going to be an issue that if there was a variation, if there was any changes, there was no issue to pull back. But what we wanted to do, unless there is good reason, give new people who might want to come in the city an idea of where we think the hours should be. And for something which is new and different, we would change the hours. But we wanted for off licences between 8 and 11, For restaurants, 9 and 1. Nightclubs and bars, which are just about one and the same now, up till 2 o'clock, and any takeaways till 1 o'clock in the morning. But retain existing hours, and as we stand here, we've got no intention of bringing in any MROs, which will reduce all trading hours to a given time. But we need to have the balance between what we've got now and what's coming into the city. And I probably also feel that there's probably enough competition there already to try and maintain quality premises for what's there. So if you want to break in, then you've got to bring something different. In terms of cumulative impact areas and special stress areas, I think the whole of the city centre is in what we call a cumulative impact area, which we think is probably amber. It's probably, are there enough premises? But there's certain areas of the city which we've also deemed special stress areas. And these are around Times Square, Marlborough Crescent, where there are already 3 applications which have never been developed in that area, which could bring potentially another 2,500 people down there. Collingwood Street and now Grey Street, particularly moving on to Grey Street now, there is Café Rouge to open, Carluccio's, which is off the top. You've got The Mill, Turk's Head and Jamie's, which are ready to open, and also premises. I think it's probably might be known as Joe's Bar, people will know, which has got 600-700 capacity, which is currently being fitted out at the top of Grey Street. So once they're there, we think Grey Street is imminent in saturation, and we want to keep it as the premier street in the city. Anybody who probably wants to come in there in the future is going to have to think and bring something significantly different into that street. We've also created saturation areas, or a proposal for off-licensing in Elsick, Benwell and Scotswood, which have got a greater concentration of off-licences than anywhere in the city. In terms of the health problems in those areas, we want to draw a line under new off-licences in that area. That does create us a little bit of a problem, because anybody who wants to open, shall we say, general dealers, where the off sales might be 5 or 10% of their turnover, can't. But that's a balance that the members are going to have to look at as and when we get any future applications. Jesmond, Gosforth and Ousburn, it's more cumulative impact area in terms of extension of hours. The residents want to keep it as it is. And Chillingham Road, Shields Road are the takeaway capital of the world, and that's where we want to draw a line. And you can eat all around the world, there are enough takeaways, and that's the issue there, cumulative impact area for takeaways. One other issue that either the city have led, not always to the welcome of everybody, is minimum pricing. It seems now that the 50p minimum pricing is probably dead nationally. We were very supportive of 50p minimum price, and I think, to be quite honest, there is probably not a pub in town or an on-licence in town which sells under minimum price, or 50p. Having said that, in order to maintain quality, we have agreed now with 3 operators that as a condition on the licence, which some may challenge legally, that they would sell at those prices, where they wouldn't sell under £3.50 for a bottle, £3.50 for a pint, £4 for a 175 wine, £14 for a bottle of wine, and £3.50 for a spirit. And they've agreed those as minimum prices on the licence. And we feel that if anything's going to maintain quality in certain premises, that price will. And that's been by agreement, but it is also by condition. And what that does do is it makes it harder for the premises to be moved on. And the other issue that we also are leading through nationally, and this has caused a fair bit of issues with the trade, but it has brought the trade together, at least probably against the council, is the late night levy. We have 100 million budget reductions to make in the city. One of the issues is how much we can manage, control the nighttime economy in terms of cleansing and other issues. So we have embarked on a consultation process to implement a late night levy by November of this year. Sarah Smith's going to cover the split of the levy. My view of the levy would be is that, and I think everybody else at the moment, whatever is collected will be put back from where it is collected from. And there will be some transparency of spend on that. It could raise in the region of £350,000 to £400,000 a year. And levy design would be anybody who has the ability to sell alcohol from 12 o'clock in the city would have to pay the levy. That's basically the nub of the levy design. It's from 12 o'clock. What we would intend to do was to set up what might be termed a levy board, which would comprise of licensees a representative from Police and Crime Commissioner, a representative from Northumbria Police, and a representative from the Council, who would manage and consider where the levy would be best spent, and also see transparency of spend. And it would be, it's not to fund anything else, it would be to fund issues within the nighttime economy where we might have to withdraw funding. It could be the taxi marshalling service, it could be extra cleansing, but to maintain a quality offer. And also, as part of that, and as part of a best practice scheme, which gives 30% reduction, we would thereby promote those premises who tick the boxes in a non-bureaucratic way. But we hope to implement that by November 2013. And I think, as I've said before, finally, the late night levy, possible spend would be street cleansing, taxi marshalling, nighttime economy management. My view is that something that's missing in the city is an interface between the licensed trade, the city council and the police, which could be funded from the levy, continuing the work that the street pastors do, any personal safety initiatives which we could implement following one or two issues we've had if people have been picking up the Chronicle and the Journal the last few days. One of the major issues for the residents of the city is there are no public convenience at night, and whether we should bring them in and take them out from sort of 10 o'clock till 3 in the morning and fund something like that to try and maintain the city, and any CCTV improvements. That was an initial wish list which we'd like to discuss through the levy board. Thanks very much for attending this morning, and I think next on would be Sarah Smith.
Thank you very much to